Hey Mustangs, Mr. Gossam here. I'm going to teach you how to solve for one variable equations, just the basics, and then we'll get into the harder ones as we go on. So first, if we're looking at number 1 here, we have x plus 5 equals 7. Obviously you can look at that and you'd be able to say that's 2 plus 5 equals 7, but we want you to learn the process because these are going to get more complicated as we go along. So what I want you to do is that first of all, I want you to find what you're trying to solve for, which in this case is x. So that's what we're looking at. The next step is to get rid of everything around the x. So if we have plus 5, we need to do the inverse, which is subtract 5. So, and if you do it to one side of the equation, you have to do it to the other because there's a balance that needs to be made. So if we do that, 5 minus 5 is 0. And we drop down your x, you drop down the equals, and then 7 minus 5 is 2. You have x alone on one side, so x equals 2. That is your answer for number 1. On number 2, if you're looking at this one, you can say, okay, it's 3 times what gives me negative 12. So in your head, you could probably say that this is negative 4, but again, we want you to know the process. What is the inverse? If this is being multiplied, we are going to divide. So when we do that, we have to divide on both sides. And then 3 over 3 is 1, which cancels each other out because 1 times x is just x, equals negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. That would be your answer there. Now, if you want to double check yourself, you can take your answers and you can plug them back into the original equation and see if it gives you the answer given. So in this case, negative 4, if we plug it back in, negative 4 times 3 is negative 12, and that works. So that's how you do the basic one-step equations. So now you know more.
Hey guys, it's Miss Garner. We're going to be doing the same thing Mr. Gossam was doing, but this time we just have variables on both sides of our equation. So in this case, we want to focus on getting all of our x's on one side, all of our numbers on the other. We're still going to use the inverse operation though. So in this case, I see I have a negative 2x on the right. I want to bring that over to the left so it's together. So if it's negative, I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to add 2x, which means I have to do the same thing on the other side. Negative 2x plus 2x cancels out. And then I have a 1x plus 2x is 3x. Everything else is just going to drop down because I haven't touched it. So negative 12 drops down, the equal sign, and the positive 3. I want to get all my numbers on the other side, so that means this negative 12 has to go on the other side. If it's negative, I'm going to add. So plus 12 plus 12. Negative 12 plus 12 is 0, so I can get rid of that. And then on the right, I have a 12 plus 3, which is 15. The 3x, we haven't touched this step, so that's going to drop down. So I'm left with 3x equals 15. The last step is to always get rid of that number in front of the x. If that's multiplication, the inverse is division. So divide by the number in front of your variable. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so we can kind of ignore that. So we're left with x equals 15 divided by 3, which is 5. So our answer here is x equals 5. If we wanted to check ourselves, we could plug that 5 back into the x to get 5 minus 12 equals 3 minus 2 times 5. And we could just simplify that in order to check. So 5 minus 12 is a negative 7. 3 minus 2 times 5 is 10. 3 minus 10 is also a negative 7. So I would just put a check up there. Our two sides are equal, so we know that x satisfies this equation. On the other equation, I'm going to use the box method, which is just a way to organize our work. So you're going to draw 2 big boxes and then split the top half. And once again, we're going to focus on getting all of our x's on this side and all of our numbers on this side. The only thing we have to remember is that if a number or x crosses your equal sign, you're going to change its sign. So the 3x is on the correct side, so that's just going to drop down. But your x here crosses your equal sign. So if it's positive here, we're going to make it a negative x in your little box. Here, the number that drops straight down is our 5. The number that crosses over is negative 1. Since it's negative, you're going to change its sign to be positive 1. Now you're just going to add your 2 little boxes to make the big one. So 3x plus negative x is 2x. 1 plus 5 is 6. Your last step is the same that we always do, which is dividing by that number in front of your variable to get x equals 3. Once again, we can check this by plugging it back into our equation and making sure the two sides are equal. And now you know more.
Hey, what's up, YouTubers? Now we're going to keep talking about one variable equations, and we're going to add in some distributive properties, some combining like terms, and also look at a couple special cases of answers when there's not an answer or not just one answer. So first, on this first problem here, we have 13 plus 2x minus 5 equals 2 times 3x plus 2. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to simplify each side. So on the left-hand side, we want to combine like terms. So I have a 2x here, and there's no other x terms to put with it, so I'm going to keep it. Then I have a positive 13, and I have a negative 5. So when I put those together, 13 positives, 5 negatives is going to give me 8 positives, so we have 2x plus 8 equals, on the right-hand side, we want to use the distributive property here. Because I cannot add the number 2 to 3x's, there's nothing I can do. So that's when we want to multiply whatever's on the outside of the parentheses by everything on the inside. So 2 times 3x is 6x, and then 2 times a positive 2 is a positive 4. So now from here, we want to look at it, and now we want to solve for x. So since I have different x values on both sides, we need to get rid of one of them and put them on the same side with each other. What I like to do, I always like to get rid of the smallest x value. That way you don't have to worry about dividing by a negative later on in the problem. So because 2x is smaller than 6x, we want to take it away. So to get rid of a positive 2x, you take away 2x. So those cross out. I'm left with 8 on the left-hand side equals, if I have 6 x's and I take away 2 of them, I have 4x left. And I still have my plus 4, so I just bring it down. Now from here, my goal is to get x by itself, so I want to get rid of everything else that's on the same side. The easiest thing to get rid of right now is a plus 4. So in order to get rid of a positive 4, we subtract 4. We should know by now that if you do something to one side of the equal sign, you have to do it to the other. So these cross out. And now on the left-hand side, I have 8 minus 4, which gives me just 4, equals, I still have my 4x on the right. And now to get x by itself, when it's 4x, that means 4 times x, so we divide to get rid of the 4. So x equals 4 divided by 4, which is 1. Now, this is what we call a one solution because there is only one answer. We could substitute 1 back into the equation, and it would fulfill both sides. So 13 plus 2 times 1 minus 5 equals 2 times 3 times 1 plus 2. So 2 times 1 is 2. So 13 plus 2 is 15. 15 minus 5 equals 10. And over here, 3 times 1 is 3. So 2 times 3 plus 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. So we know that that is the answer. That is the only answer there is. There is no other number in the world that will satisfy that equation. So we call that one solution. Number 2, we're going to have a special case here. So again, we want to simplify each side of the equal sign. So I have to use the distributive property. So 2 times 2x is 4x, and then 2 times a negative 7 is a negative 14, equals, on the right-hand side, there's nothing to simplify or combine, so we're just going to leave it 4x plus 5. Now, typically what we want to do is we want to get rid of our smallest x value or get rid of any x value. But if we notice here, I have 4x on both sides. So let's just kind of go through the motions. Let's say I were to take away 4x from both sides. Those cross out. Both of them cancel out to 0. So now I'm left with negative 14 equals 5. Negative 14 does not equal 5. Those are not equal quantities. Those are not the same number. So this particular problem is what we call no solution. There is not an answer or there is not a number that will satisfy this equation. So we just say no solution. The way we can recognize that is whenever you have the same x value on both sides of the equal sign, but your regular numbers, your integers are different, then it's going to be no solution. Because you can't multiply a number by the same number, so I can't take the number 7, for instance, and multiply it by 4, and take away 14 from it, and then add 5 to it on another way, and then get the same answer. So no solution is the same x values, but different regular numbers. Then there's also a special circumstance whenever we have the same thing on both sides. So again, we want to do the distributive property. So 3 times 2x is 6x, and 3 times negative 6 is a negative 18. Equals, on the right-hand side, we want to distribute again. So 2 times 3x is 6x, and 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. Now, again, let's say we want to go through our steps because we don't notice anything special going on here. So if you were to take away 6x from both sides, they would cancel out, and we'd be left with negative 18 equals negative 18. This is what we call infinitely many solutions, and that is because every single number in the world would satisfy this equation. No matter what number you take, if you multiply it by 6 and take away 18, you'll get the same answer on both sides because you're doing the same thing. So we could plug 3 in for x, we could plug 11 in for x, we could play 952 in for x. Any number would create a correct answer here. So that's infinitely many solutions whenever you have the exact same thing on both sides, the same x values and the same regular numbers. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below, and now you know more.